I'm concerned with this too. After I talked to you, Lori, I went home and pulled out my old tax records. And property tax, it doesn't say on a property tax, the fire, it doesn't say that the police levy. It does say township tax. I'm gonna call it an increase, I think you're gonna call it valuation. What I'm paying the township went up 33.4%. I'm thinking of what I paid for my township tax last year to what I'm paying this year. I think a lot of people are disgruntled like me if they've looked at it. If we can express a need, I know we have a need for it, but I don't know what you need. It's all I know is it's costing me a lot more money, and I'm not getting a pay increase. So I'm changing my budget around to make my budget work out. If you could show us, like I know the township, I'm assuming the township got more money from all the valuations. Why is it all right in the tax?
Not a dime. Well, I wouldn't say not a dime, very minimal, because your reevaluations have no effect on levies that are in place.
I know it doesn't affect the levies,
So,
but I'm saying, the same right on it, my township got.
yeah, we get a little bit more on inside millage.
Which would impact the general fund only. I'm not a tax
Yeah,
expert,
right.
but I think
The,
we'd have to look at the general fund. It might
So-
be some increase in the general fund, but that would not impact fire or police.
Police and fire,
I'm sure
road
the
levies
levy
got.
doesn't pay for everything we're paying for our police and fire. I'm sure our general fund is paying for some of it, am I correct?
No.
No?
No.
I think we need to find a way, you need to find a way, and I haven't been involved in this, so, I had my head in the sand, and now I'm coming out here because it's costing me money. But maybe I could go onto a website, on the township website, do you have a breakdown of what your cost, income, and expenses are? Is there some way that you can, I know you're trying to talk to, you said you gotta find a way to talk to people that voted for this. Is there a way that you can express where this need has to come from, where your expenditures are more than your income?
Sure.
So we're not all just sitting and say, oh, we need a levy, we need a levy, we need a levy. Prove to me that we need a levy. Prove to me after, my taxes just went up $1,200.
Right.
Prove to me that you need more money. You need another
And
$200.
Tom, I think that's where our big problem is in the township, and to sum that up probably is, the easiest way to say it, if you look at your taxes, what you pay in taxes, the township receives roughly 25%. So every dollar you pay in property tax, you of course pay that to the county. The county sends us what they collect. We don't do any collections at all. That's all handled by the auditor's office in the county. We get roughly 25 cents for every dollar in tax you pay. That 25 cents is split between police, fire, the road levies, all that kind of stuff. Depending on the levies, I mean, so it's not equal. I mean, I can't say it's 25% and it's divided equally between the departments. It's not. Depends on how the levies are, when the levies were. Any reevaluation, say your taxes went up on reevaluation. So when a levy is voted in, if that levy generates $100,000 today, so today that levy went in effect, it generated $100 or $100,000. That levy can never generate more than $100,000. So as you sit here and listen to Jerry say we built $2.9 million worth of more property improvements in this township, everyone says that's great because by, those people are now paying into the same base and the police department gets more than fire. No, they don't. You pay less. Everybody's goes down because now that can still only generate the 100,000. So the more buildings that go up, the more taxes that are increased in this township, the less you pay. And that's the problem with old levies. When you look at a levy that was a 5 mil levy that was put in 25 years ago, quite possibly pays the township less than a new half mil levy. And I know that's crazy, but that's the way it is. So you will hear the difference between a renewal levy and a replacement levy. Renewal just keeps it as it is. Replacement replaces that levy at today's market values. So then your taxes go up on a replacement, but not on a renewal. That's how that all works. We did, on those reappraisals, the general fund received a little bit in inside millage. It's about enough to buy a couple boxes of Kleenex, really. We don't get it. You know, the next thing that's happened is that the state has pulled back the funding that they used to give the townships. So we just appointed Rick a few months back. One of the candidates that was seeking Bill's term was a trustee that was here 20 years ago. I don't know how long, a long time ago. And he made a comment to us at that time that when I left office, we had $1 million put away. $1 million saved. How come you guys can't do that now? Well, back then, the state was writing the checks all the time, so they lived forever, like we lived off of ARP money, where the state gave them money. We don't get that anymore. So the only way we can support our departments now is with levies, and it's difficult, it really is. But I also understand the taxpayers in this community. Don't forget
We
that
need to express that, show me.
we pay the same. I mean, every one of us sitting in this room pays the same. So when we sit here and say that we need these levies to continue serving the community with what we have, you know, it's sad when we look at it, but the police department per se is, you go back 15 years ago, they had a secretary, they don't anymore. They had more officers, they don't now. They had a bunch more part-time guys, they don't anymore. We're down, they were buying new cruisers every other year. We're buying used cruisers. We got a couple new cars through ARP money that we'll probably never see again. So now we had to cut a deal now and beg Niles to sell us their used cars again, so we're back. We were getting them from the state patrol back then for $8,000 a piece. Now we're getting them for 10 that are outfitted, which is a good deal for the township. We just bought one a month and a half ago. Did we need that cruiser? We didn't absolutely positively have to have it. We got one that's done. It keeps us where we were, but at the same time, if we get out of bed with Niles, we're gonna have another problem there. So we're back to scrimping and looking at every corner, but I agree with you. That's the information that the public needs to see. They need to see the police budgets. They need to see where the money's going. They need to see why it's going.
Most people probably won't eat carrots, wouldn't go along with the inflation, but I think that a lot of people are just, typically complaining about it. Like the last levy, you guys had to come by levy, was it a year ago? That failed. I think everyone's just looking at the dollar amount, they weren't looking at what the money was for, or where it was going, or why it was needed.
We tried to tell you where the monies were going, what they were for. We had 12 people show up over 4 days.
You know, I was not one of them, so yeah.
We tried. And some of the biggest complainers now on Facebook are the people that didn't show up. But we tried to explain to them then, the monies just aren't there. You know, this process, like the trustees are explaining, this didn't happen under their watch. This happened under the prior administration and those guys that left before him. But this all started even before 2020 when Governor Kasich took over. If you even do the history, Governor Kasich signed a bill that reduced the local government funds.
The treasurer explained it to me. He was trying to know the inside.
3.8, it went from 3.8% of your local revenue fund, to right now it's 1.6. So you literally cut it in less than half. So the township gets half of what the state used to get. You can't do it.
As
You
the
can't pay
state,
bills in 2024 with less money, half of less money.
and as they cut funding, they stipulated more and more and more and more to the township. So things like the radio systems that our police department and fire departments use to communicate with our 911 center, there's what's called a Marks radio system. Guess who sponsors the Marks radio system, guys? The state of Ohio. They charge us monthly for each radio that we have. They charge us dearly just to have the radio and have the radio on the air. And then Trumbull County charges us to talk to us. Every time they pick up the mic, what's it cost, $7?
$7, and it's gonna go up 10% every year.
It's gonna go up more and more and more. These are expenses that we cannot control. We've had conversations about what happens if we just pull out the 911 center and start our own. That sounds great. We don't have $3 million to do that. That's what it will cost. It's what it will cost to do it, to get it certified, to get it to run. And then you need employees to run it. So it's, I don't know. I don't know where we go from here. And if it was a problem that was in Champion Township, then we could pick up the phone and we could call some of our neighboring guys and say, come over here and show us what it is that you're doing, because we can't seem to make ends meet here. But when I call them and I talk to them and we see each other at different events and different functions, the first thing out of their mind is, hey, what are you guys doing about police? We're broke. Hey, how are you guys affording to do this ambulance? And, you know, the Southington agreement that they just forged with Farmington, we're in the know. We've negotiated contracts with Southington for years. We're in the know. We look at what they put together and there's no way this can work. I mean, we look at it and say, you're missing about $200,000 worth of stuff that you don't even realize you're missing yet, but you will. You will. That's why I asked Tom tonight is, have they realized how short that they're going to be? They don't yet, but they will.
That's why when people post stuff on Facebook, I always respond, go to the meetings, go to the trustee meetings.
But
Because people, they complain on Facebook, but they don't show up here. Yeah.
it's a sad situation, and it's not just Champion. It's everywhere in the county and everywhere in the state. But I understand, Tom's right. You know, nobody wants to keep paying more and more taxes.
I found out about this, because I heard on the FFA News that you're talking about having a meeting today, and I didn't remember where it was, so I stopped and asked where the meeting was, saw the sign of it tonight. So I'm not on Facebook, well, I am on Facebook, but I didn't listen to it. I've asked you before, when we had you over the house, I came in here and said, what are your meetings? And it just doesn't register to me, I don't get the newspaper. I don't pass Kent State sign when you guys advertise and stuff on, which she told me about. So that's what I'm trying to get down on the stuff today. Now I know you have a website, so I can go on there and mess around.
Well,
But I have not, you know, it's just that, I don't hear about it, so it's not something that's on top of my agenda.
I think what needs to happen is that the community needs to be educated about this. And apparently, there's only one way we can educate people in Champion Township, especially, probably the whole world, and that seems to be this thing called Facebook. Because apparently nobody reads a newspaper anymore, and I get it. It seems to be Facebook. So I think probably the next thing that has to happen is the township needs to establish a Facebook page that we can put stuff on there that you cannot comment. Here's the information. Do with it what you want, but that's the information. I think that when you get to the brass tacks of it and you see the expenses associated with what we're doing, I think you'd be shocked. And I think that information needs put out. I mean, I really do.
Chief, what is your officers making base? Just
52,000.
okay. If you looked at today's news, Lordstown is promoting to offer mid-60s to start for officers. That's another thing that you don't factor in, because they have to be competitive to get an officer here. And people don't even realize that. I mean, if I'm an officer, I'm in Champion, I would be interested in making another $14,000 a year.
And here's a good point, Debbie, I want to thank you for that, because that brings up a good point. Today I did an interview for a potential employee, and this is where people in Champion don't realize the benefits that they get. The days of Mayberry, Trustee Emmer and I brought this up, the days of Mayberry Champion are done. The state has put out requirements to build, such as the collaborative, that you will comply with certain regulations and standardization. If you don't, guess what? You're done. So that's costing more and more money. So for instance, today I interviewed a young gentleman just out of the academy that came in and said, hey, I'd like to come work. I know Champion offers a great benefit and experience. He's heard about some great things that we've done collaboratively and collectively with the board, the fiscal, everybody. We've been working so hard to update. And he said, I'm excited. He goes, I said, okay, what do you do? He worked at Great Lakes Cheese. He's going to take a $4 pay cut to come here as a police officer. How does that happen? And people want to complain on Facebook that their police make too much. You got a guy making cheese, making $4 more an hour. Now, I said, what about part-time? And he's willing to do it. The guy said, would you be willing to come in here as a part-time police officer now, so we can get you started in case we have an opening for full-time? He's gonna take a $4 an hour pay cut to come from Kinsman PD to Champion. How does that work? Kinsman's part-time. Doesn't equate. So when I have people come and say, how can we not get more part-timers? How can we not get more employees? That's why.
The same issue our fire department's got, really. I mean, you hit it, $13 an hour we're paying a medic that's gonna come save your life tonight. The guy can make more than that at McDonald's,
I
flipping
met
burgers.
him, and I asked him that question, so why are you here?
Right.
He just smiled. I think
Because they
it's
love
more
doing
fun
what they do.
than you just have to do part-time on others.
It's brotherhood. It
What you
is.
want to know about your property taxes is go to the school. I'm the one who recalled property taxes back in 1994. And I went with the continuing levies, because once a levy is put on it for 5 years, you can't touch it. It's illegal. How do you lower a levy? You pull from underneath. And that's what I had to learn when they put 15 mills on, if anybody remembers the 15 mills that our school put on, and I didn't think anybody was that stupid. But surprised me.
They
They
did it.
did, and as soon as they found out what 15 mills was, they all had heart attacks. And so I went to the Board of Elections, and I said, how do I reduce this tax levy? Well, she didn't want to tell me, because, you know, they're in cahoots. Well, it is what it is. I had to threaten to bring in the news stations. I said, you work for me, you're the Board of Elections, I paid you. You either tell me or I'll bring in every news station. That's the only way I got her to tell me that you go with the continuing levy, because the continuing levy is continuous. So I pulled up, I didn't take all of their 15 mills, but I took about eight mills off of them. And I pulled out from underneath. And they dropped the taxes. But I don't know anybody else that would have done it. And then I had to go and put it on the levy. Then I had to have a meeting. I had 200 people show up for that meeting at Kent State. I had to have it at Kent State. I had 200 people show up for a meeting. Now, you know that's a miracle.
Right, oh yeah.
But I had everybody there. I had every commissioner, anybody who had tax information. I had the auditors, the treasurers. I had them all there. Who didn't show up? The school board. Imagine that. They have a ton of money and most of it's yours. That's where you want to go. You don't want to come here because they don't
I'm just
have
asking
that.
questions.
No, I'm just saying, if you really want to know why your
That's-
taxes are so high.
That's the right
why.
thing to do. That's what doesn't happen.
You did
People,
that. Find out what they pay their attorneys every year. You'll have a heart attack.
people don't come here to get educated. People don't ask questions to get educated.
I pulled it.
That's the
all-
problem.
That's all public information. I must have a heart attack. That was in 1994. They were paying $450,000 to the attorney. I said, why are you paying $450,000 to an attorney? Well, we have, contracts. I said, well, why did you hire that superintendent? That's what he's supposed to do. Well, believe me, if I ask you a question, I already have the answer. That's just the way I do business. And I asked him, I said, what do you think? The superintendent. He told me. I said, well, let's fire him and hire the attorney. It'd be cheaper.
One other question that you play. We're going for a 1.6 mil levy. What happens for the old renewal? It stays in, so we have 2 levies.
Continuing.
So
That's what you call continuing levies.
Why don't you replace it?
Well,
Because
because
if it fails, then it
straight up, we don't have the guts.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's what it comes down to. Because if we run a replacement levy and it fails, you're out. You're just done. So, that's why traditionally, and it's, the township, and I hate to say this because it's offensive to some people, but the township, the Board of Trustees have always taken a back seat to the schools. That's where that's truly my opinion of what's wrong here. The problem is that we've always paid dearly for our schools. We've 15 mil levies, school bond issues to build new buildings, and I'm not saying that building didn't need replaced. I'm gonna tell you that building needed replaced 20 years before it was. But in true champion fashion, we let it get to the point that it cost us 5 times more money to fix the problem, and we did. And our taxes went up. And our taxes continue to go up for the schools, and then the township comes and says, you know, your paramedic program, we're paying guys $13 an hour. We really could use a couple mills here to shore up our manpower. We got some older equipment there that still is gonna need replaced, and people say, first thing they say is no more taxes. I don't wanna pay any more taxes. I don't wanna pay any more taxes. The same thing we run into with the police department, same thing we've run into with the road department over the years, where everyone's complaining about the roads, and the roads are falling apart, and we're telling them, you know, we got enough money to throw salt on it in the winter, but that's about the size of it. And we just went to salt a couple of years ago, we were throwing ash on it before that, plugging all the sewers up with it, because salt was too expensive. All that being said, when you look at your tax rates, and you figure out where your money's going, it's just north of here. Just north of here. It's all going to school.
You mean that $100-year floor they just put in that new building?
What's that?
Yeah, the 100-year floor. So I went for a tour of it too, the superintendent said, look at this floor. He didn't know I used to work construction. Put a 100-year tile on that floor. Why? 30 years ago, it wasn't a building.
Right. Exactly right. So that is truly what's happened in this community, is that the schools have always come first, and then the township tries to squeak in and get a mill. We need a mill for this, or, our road department, our roads are falling apart, our infrastructure is horrible, we need a mill. And everyone says, I just gave the school, well, we don't get the school's money. School can't give us any of their money, and they won't. So.
People don't realize how many mills you pay. People think I'm paying 10 mills. No, you're not. If you look at the total millage from that school, back in 1994, you were paying 55 mills. 55. Now, I don't know what it is today. But I'm telling you what it was in 1994. And people don't look at the total picture, they only look at a little slice of it.
You want to know what the mill is today?
I'm talking total.
Well, I just had a dollar, and I had to figure out the millage.
See, you want the total millage.
Yeah.
I had to learn the questions to ask.
I lived 20 years in Pennsylvania, I moved back 20 years now, but over there we didn't vote on taxes in schools, and they weren't as expensive as they were here.
I just want to make a comment on the renewal levy for the police. It generates only $63,000, and I say only, but we had to have that because we are short in being able to get through even next year without that $63,000.
And I don't think.
So it's not very much.
You didn't have a problem with last election on that either.
The renewal, yeah, it was fine.
Did you?
No, it passed.
That's quite a bit, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think it
Yeah,
did.
it did well.
But it's only generating 63,000, but we really needed to have that 63,000 because we needed every cent of it. That's for 5 years. What we're talking about now, 1 mil, I think was what, 256,000. So it's a lot different than 63,000. But our gap is, like we talked earlier, it's 150,000 probably at least, between our tax revenue and our expenses. So we're doing our very best to keep the expenses down, but there are some things that they're not in our control. And that, I hate to even say that because we're trying.
Does that mean I can expect it in November to have a fire levy on too, since before they wanted a combination, now we're just going for police?
But I will say on the fire, since you weren't at the last meeting, but the fire department also, their expenses are exceeding the revenue. But we're a little healthier there right now. So, out in the future, okay, again, it's another situation where your expenses are more than your revenue. So, but right now, the fire department is healthier than we are in the police.
And that being said about your fire department, there's a couple things that should alarm you. When she says that we're exceeding, which means we're spending more than we're bringing in. we've received roughly $700,000 worth of free ambulances in the last 3 years, 4 years, 3 to 4 years. So without that, we would, the conversation would be much different. And see, that's the problem with grants and stuff. You hear us talk about grants all the time, and everyone's bringing more grants, bringing more grants. Grants, number one, cost money. There's no such thing, well, I wouldn't say there's no such thing, there's very few free grants. Most grants are money match. So, you know, we're gonna give you $25,000, that grant's worth $25,000, you've gotta pay, you know, $10,000 match for it or whatever. Sometimes we just don't have the money to even afford to pay for the grant. But that being said, when you run on grant money, when the grant money runs out, your problem is much bigger, much faster, if that makes any sense. So as we've been supplementing these departments with ARP and CARES Act dollars from COVID, we've got further and further and further and further behind. Now you take that free money away from us, and it's gone. And now all of a sudden, the ugliness is gonna really, it's gonna come much faster, it's gonna show its face much faster. And, I don't know, we will continue to do what we can.
So like, and I'm gonna touch on what Doug is trying to say here. The average citizen in Champion doesn't realize we've had to cut so much that oftentimes in Champion alone, you have one officer on the road. It tears me up, they'll back me. Oftentimes you'll see me out here riding around at night after 5 o'clock. I should have been home a long time ago just to cover those hours, because I don't want my people sitting by themselves, especially a young lady officer by themselves. But we've cut every expense we can. I mean, for years, there was not even hot water in that police station because they didn't want to buy a new hot water. Toilet paper, ordinary cleaning supplies come out of my pocket. He'll tell you. If I don't buy the toilet paper, I steal it from him. It's just, we cut costs, and when I took over as chief, every one of the board members will tell you, and even Bill will tell you, we cut costs. My requisitions, Lori Jo will tell you, my biggest requisition is maintenance cost in cars, which we can't avoid that. You know, we live in northeast Ohio with potholes and stuff. That's our biggest expense besides mandated expenses like the collaborative, March radios, and policies and procedure manuals. It's to the point where we're at bare bones. Bare bones.
I have a question. Vanessa Tischer, that's my address, 4692 Hummel. I'm tired today. I've been here all day.
This would be a good question.
What would you have to do in order to, say, realign the distribution of taxes where the school would not get such the big chunk? What would have to be done for that?
With boat removal.